Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the December 3rd, 2015 Delaware Public Service Commission meeting. Welcome to everyone, and it's nice to see a large crowd here. There's no minutes to be read. The first item on the agenda is, the second thing actually is the consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda that a commissioner would like to have placed onto the regular agenda? Okay, so if we could have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Is there any discussion on the motion to approve the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed, and one member is absent. Commissioner Conaway, but for people's information, is with family in Massachusetts today. Also, for the first thing on the regular agenda is in the matter of the corrective action order issued to Iacona, Summer Chase Apartments. Before we get started there, yesterday in California was a pretty terrible incident that took place, and I think the Commission would like to take a moment of silence to reflect upon that and to give support, mentally at least anyway, to the victims and to their family and friends. Thank you very much. We have with us now Mr. Coombs. Welcome. Nice to see you again.
Point of order. People on the phone, if you could mute your microphones, there are some background noises that are coming through. Thank you, sir. I'm old and cantankerous.
Mr. Coombs, please proceed.
Thank you. Todd Coombs on behalf of Iacona Summer Chase Apartments, and with me is Paul Chandler, a property manager for the facility. Your Honor, we come to the Commission today with respect to the corrective action order that was issued at the last meeting, and we have submitted a motion to amend the corrective action order, which I believe the Commissioners have received.
Yes, that's correct.
And if you may I discuss that, please?
Yes, please.
Okay.
That's why we're here.
Since the facility was issued the corrective action order, it has looked at it, and I can report to the Commission that the leak surveys that were the first and a part of it have begun, and those are being taken place. And the facility also then met internally and had discussions with staff about how to implement the corrective action order and a path forward. As part of that evaluation, one, it identified a temporary tank implementation that could be done to essentially bypass and make obsolete some of the piping system that was at issue with the original leak survey that would be done. And then two, it learned that it could replace the propane system rather than potentially converting it. So we met with staff earlier this week and have talked with them about a path forward. And the path forward that we have brought to the Commission today, and that is part of the motion to amend the corrective order, is one, to continue with the leak surveys, but also to recognize a temporary tank solution that may be done to put essentially tanks right beside the facility and bypass and make obsolete, as I said, the at-issue piping. Second, in response to one question that Mr. Platt raised with respect to the existing large propane tank that supplies the facility, he had a question as to its integrity, and so my client has agreed to inspect that as part of the program as well. And then the third thing that we've put in the corrective action, the amended corrective action order, is that the facility, Iacona, will supply to or provide to the Commission by December 15th its plan moving forward of how it's going to replace that system. And then it will then implement that, and it will try to implement that within the 4-month time period that the Commission provided in the order. We, after discussing these different items with the staff, with Mr. Platt and with Ms. Maybrack, We sent to them our proposed recommendations. They sent back edits to those, and we've agreed with those edits. And that's what has come forward to you in the proposed motion.
Thank you, Mr. Coons. Ms. Mayrack?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. As counsel for Iacona Summer Chase Apartments has summarized, this commission did issue a corrective action order at the November 3rd meeting that was meant to address certain urgent safety concerns at the apartment complex. Since then, Mr. Iacona has come back and had discussions with staff. We met and conferred to discuss the changes to that corrective action order, which would then go into the amended order that is before the commission today. In the short term, the weekly leak surveys, would continue, which addresses, again, monitoring for any safety concerns we might have. We've added, as Mr. Coons has pointed out, testing of the underground tanks to, that was not in the prior order, but would be in the amended order. It gives Mr. Iacona the chance until December 15th to come forward with a final plan to be submitted to staff about the direction that is taken. And staff does not oppose this order, and staff recognizes that there are certain, there were concerns raised at the November 3rd meeting about inconvenience to tenants, issues and possible risks with doing construction over the winter. And this amended plan does address many of the concerns that were raised by the commissioners about construction over the winter and short-term inconvenience to the tenants by consideration of the temporary tanks basically going into place. Staff's long-term concerns are, of course, what we raised at the November 3rd meeting, that this does keep Iacona Summer Chase Apartments LP in the long-term business of being a pipeline operator and subject to the oversight of this commission. And we've raised that. But again, staff and the commission does not really have the say in whether an apartment complex goes with natural gas or goes with propane. Our concern is about the safety of the system and the integrity of that system and the safety for the residents. So staff does not oppose the order in front of you today.
Thank you, Ms. Mayrack. Ms. Iori?
Thank you, Chair Winslow. The public advocate is not directly involved in this case, but is pleased that the parties have been able to negotiate a resolution that appears to be favorable to all interests involved, including, most importantly, perhaps the residents of the community.
Thank you, Ms. Iori. I would extend my appreciation to both parties with respect to the agreement. It does seem to address some of the issues that we obviously were sympathetic to the plight, so to speak, that the contractor was in, or the landlord, and also sympathetic to what might happen to the tenants. And sometimes it's hard to reconcile those two interests, but it looks like you all have done a good job of addressing both of those issues. And so for myself, I'm going to be supportive of the order. Does any other commissioner have any comments or any questions of the parties?
I do. A quick question, just so I understand, about the temporary propane tanks. Are those tanks, is the issue that the pipeline system from wherever the tanks are now, at some distance from the 35 buildings, that's where the corrosion and the problems are?
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to put them next to the buildings, or are there going to be 35 temporary tanks?
No, essentially, I don't know the exact number of temporary tanks, but the temporary tanks will be located near the buildings, and they will install piping to directly go into the existing building, so that any existing pipeline that was failing a leak survey, as it's provided in the order, will be cut and closed, so that will become essentially obsolete.
Any other questions? Patrick Correa.
Notwithstanding all the details you have worked out with our people, I presume that you agree with the general concern Commission has about the safety of people. So next 4 months or 5 months, if you find something else, not all these things, but more than that, or different than that, would you please sort of re-emphasize to us that safety is a major concern to you as well?
Yeah, we will be continuing to provide the leak survey results as part of, in the interim until the final system is in place. And I anticipate, and I think my client can say this, is that there'll be a continuing dialogue with Mr. Platt as we build out the system, as we'll be providing the data to him.
Sounds like it's going to be less expensive for the landlord. It's going to be safer for the tenants. And we'll have a new system in place in a reasonable period of time. So once again, sounds like a good deal. Anybody have a motion with respect to the proposed corrective order?
Chair, I move that the commission adopt order number 8827 as submitted.
I second it.
Is there any discussion on the motion to approve the order as submitted? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes 4-0 with one member absent. Thank you very much, Mr. Coon.
Thank you. And we appreciate Mr. Platt and Ms. Bragg's time this week.
Thank you, Ms. Mariette. Number 2 is in the matter of the legislative petition for review and recommendations of Delmarva Power and Light Company, utility bill transparency. I think we probably have a number of people in the room who are interested in this. The commissioners would like to welcome Senator Lawson, Representative Kowalko, and obviously all the parties in this matter. And I believe, since this indicates it's a legislative petition for review and recommendations about the utility bill transparency, that will let our esteemed member of the House of Representatives, Representative John Kowalko, start this discussion off. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. And welcome to all the commission members. This petition was filed June of 2013, so maybe some of you weren't even born by then.
I was born on June 12th, if that helps you.
I think I've been reborn in the 2 years. Not a lot, though. I did this morning. I got here at 10 o'clock because I had written down on my calendar 1, and I read that as 10. I got here, so I spent the 4 hours writing some more documents. If you don't mind, I'd like to read those.
Just a second. Senator Lawson, Senator Lawson, he gave his presentation this morning, so we'll skip him and do you next.
Did he get any response from the parking lot?
Just to briefly summarize, I was certainly concerned with some of the actions we've taken as a General Assembly that have put the Public Service Commission in a position of ruling and things that would be charged to the customer. And my concern was, as you all might be aware, and we need openness and transparency and in government, and the only way we can do that is to make people aware of what we are doing to them that affects their lives. So when I originally had brought the petition, it was more broad-based about what I would like to see in there. And a lot of it was provoked by a dialogue. I was an intervener in a case where there was recovery of costs for smart meters that were no longer useful, and it was going to be burden was going to be placed on the ratepayer, and I thought that should be part of their bill, that they should know they're paying for something that they don't use. You know, that could be almost reflectively as haranguing Delmarva, because it is approved by this commission, and there's always a responsible look at that, anything that's approved of it. So I respect that. So in the course of all of these dialogues, I've come to the conclusion that what I would like to see in this building transparency, in addition to the changes that have been made by Delmarva, and I thank them for that, I would like to see specifically the Bloom charge. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And one of them, and I've done this before, and I'm going to do my mea culpas again, we as legislators passed the Bloom legislation, which declared it a renewable, which it is not, which declared it for the purpose of being renewable, that we would have the commission decide to provide a surcharge, let's call it that, for lack of a better word, that the customers would have to bear for the next 20 years. And we as the legislator were told, and this is a fact, And I can get all 62 of us in here. We were told that the number would be about $1.15 to $1.20, never more than that a month. Since that time, it has grown exponentially, and it's leveled off, but it's still at a high rate. And the people have a right to know, what are we paying for here? There's a myriad of complaints about the balloon charge, and I don't want to focus on this because that's our job to somehow fix what we've done there. But it's our job also to let the public be aware when we make these type of decisions, how it affects them in the dollars and cents world that they live in. So I think it's a fair asking, and we've reviewed, and I believe there's no parties to this action that have said that simply adding that balloon surcharge would be an insurmountable challenge or an expensive challenge. There's been a lot of side dialogues about, well, what about renewables? What about the cost? What about the benefits? And I agree. We could put them on a website. This charge here is very easily calculable and very easily placed on a bill. I see no harm to anyone except people that want to preserve the secrecy or want to hide behind the cloak of a non-transparency for the actions we've taken. And I think that this is important when it comes to good government, because good government has to be transparent government, and transparent government has to be an idea of what happened in this room that led us to this point in time where someone is paying a bill and there's an additional charge on that for that individual. It's not the fault of this commission. I want that known. It's not the fault of Delmarva. But to put 300,000 users in a position where they're subsidizing a private business is even more appalling than our normal reflex action to give millions of dollars to very successful corporations that are borne by all the taxpayers. At least there's a chance of a return on investment for that. And I don't want to pontificate about the balloon thing, but this, from the very beginning, I worried about putting a very significantly smaller group of people at risk of having to pay for something that they have no chance of ever getting a return on investment on. When we do this as government, when we try to make investments in businesses, we have a return for the taxpayers, whether it's jobs, taxes that come from that, or any of these things are a return on investment to the taxpayer. This, what we put ourselves in is a position here where we are almost penalizing a small group of people, and I think that they should have the awareness of what we've done to them. And I hopefully that they can raise their voices and that we can make some changes in what we've done. And I think that that's not the reason for doing this. I think it's fairness, openness. But if it happened that there was an outcry, and they see this in their bill every day, and there may or may not be, then I would look at it as an incentivizing me to take further action. So I'm just asking this very simply, that this Public Service Commission rule to put the balloon charge on. I've reduced my asking to just that charge. And I have here, Senator Vell had introduced a bill, and it was to insist that the charges listed on customer monthly bill shall include, and has a list of including costs. We shouldn't have to do this type of thing legislatively. That's what I'm asking you people to do, that we've given you the regulatory right and regulatory capacity to have it done for us rather than go through a whole process of a bill. But I will not hesitate to bring it legislatively. I just think that would be an awful disregard for the use of the assets and the time, and there's so many important things facing us as a General Assembly that I would want that to get, tie us up our valuable time. And I have a lot of faith in this commission. I always have. And any kind of regulatory body that has the intensity of thought and regard for things, to me, is an admirable placing of government responsibility. So I hope that you'll see it that way.
Thank you, Representative Kowalko. Senator Wilson, you want to make any comments at all?
Just a few, if I may.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I'd like to take exception for what the PSC did to me. You hired the best young lady I've ever met over there, Heather Away. So I just want to put that on the record.
nice to know that they can get you.
Well, I'll tell you what, you've got a very good person, man. Okay, she means a lot to me.
Great.
So, having that important note out of the way, I have a few more. It just seems simple to me, and that's my background, it's just simple. That we've spent a long time running around and chasing a very simple thing that is just right. You buy a piece of equipment and you have to have these other things with it, attachments, and they're all on the bill. You buy a simple dishwasher and you have to pay for installation and you pay for the kit to get it installed and the washers, and why would this not be on a bill? It's only right. We all know it's right. Know that the customer has the right to know what they're paying for. So I don't understand all this resistance to being honest. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Probably a few people in the room who might want to discuss that particular issue. So we'll listen to who's next on our agenda here. I guess it's Senator Simpson's not here, I don't believe. I don't see him. And so we have Mr. Nichols.
Thank you, Commissioner Winslow, and the other commissioners. It's been an honor and a privilege to be able to serve as an intervener in this docket. Normally, I speak extemporaneously, but I'm going to I'm going to read from a prepared statement, if you'll bear with me. I want this to be part of the record, which is only about 5 minutes, if that. I dislike using prepared remarks. As I said, preferring to speak extemporaneously. But in this instance, I'm making an exception to make certain I do not neglect any important issue. I want to start by saying there is no compelling reason to not include the Bloom Energy surcharge in the ratepayers' bill as a separate line item. There are only excuses. 2 years and hours of time have elapsed to get us to this point, when in reality, this is a decision that should have been made in 30 seconds. Common sense dictates that citizens have a right to know how much of their hard-earned money they pay to subsidize one special interest company in the most transparent way possible. To achieve this end, I'm prepared to prove that the cost of new Bloom Energy fuel cell projects are increasing, not decreasing. To prove only 224 jobs have been created, not the 600 high-paying jobs promised under the strategic grant agreement with the Delaware Economic Development Office. To prove the Bloom feed-in tariff should never have been adopted. To prove that each Bloom job has cost only Delmarva Power ratepayers $446,482. Let me repeat that. Each job created based upon the money that's been paid to Bloom Energy has costed only the Delmarva Power ratepayers $446,482. And lastly, to prove Bloom Energy was paid more than 50% of the $60 million in annual subsidies mandated under the so-called Renewable Energy Portfolio Standard Act during the last compliance year, and more than $100 million in total since inception of the Delaware project. So let us be honest. This decision is not about facts. It's about politics. The people responsible for bringing the Bloom debacle to Delaware do not want their fellow citizens reminded about their mistake so that they can keep their positions of authority. However, even this is not a reason to fail to post the charge as a line item. It's an excuse. Citizens must understand how bad decisions made by their representatives personally affect their lives so that they can chart a new course. Therefore, I am hopeful the commissioners will mandate that Delmarva Power must include the Bloom surcharge as a separate line item and uphold their responsibilities to the citizens of the state of Delaware. I'm prepared to address any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nichols. Mr. Geddes?
Chairman, members of the commission, You have the memorandum of Mr. Smith, who was the case manager who oversaw the 3 workshops. And I believe that he has thoroughly analyzed the information that was brought to his attention and made several recommendations, of which one he picked as his recommendation. But if you look at page 8 of that memorandum, he makes 2 salient points that I believe you should consider.
Could you bear with me for a second? I am not too adroit on this computer. I need to go to where you're asking me to go. Okay.
Page 8 of his October 15th memo. Now, I would disagree with Mr. Nichols. I don't believe that the analysis here was politically driven. I think the analysis was driven by the discussion of the various participants in the workshop. Mr. Smith makes 2 points here. The first one being that there are many facilities that are part of this charge. And there was a discussion as to why this particular project should be disaggregated from the others and separately listed. I believe that the discussion by the representatives and Mr. Nichols indicates why they feel a distinction should be made because of the legislation and some of the concerns with regard to the costs and how they've escalated over time, and also the fact that some of the employment estimates have not been reached. But I think a more important point is the second one that he discusses on that page. And that is where he discusses the separate factors that go into the Bloom charge. The disbursement rate, the fuel cost, and then the 2 that are very difficult to estimate in advance, and that is the credits derived for PJM and also the avoided costs for the RECs and the SRECs, as well as the true-ups that occur, all of which are, after the fact, balanced. So even though the customer is actually is being charged the amount on the bill, that is not the final amount because there are other calculations that need to be taken into account. And so the concern, of course, there is that the pricing signal, which bills are supposed to create signals, is not really the most definitive one. Now, is it a good proxy of what that cost is in that particular month? Yes, but there are some other calculations that go into that to arrive at a final or a trailing cost, if you will, which in the lexicon of utility regulation is called a true-up. So that's the concern. Now, this is a policy issue for the Commission. The Commission has the right, obviously, to require Delmarva to put this charge on the bill, or it can decide that there are sufficient reasons why the bill should not be further revised because of possible confusion for customers. Now, that does not mean that the information is not available. It is available. It's just not on the bill. Now, people can have concerns about access to the internet. Not every resident or every customer at Delmarva, I would assume, has an individual computer, although they could go to public areas to obtain a computer. But in the review of some of the information that was generated in these workshops, it was clear that not many people go to the internet to look at Delmarva sensitive information. That it is a resource that's there, but if you look at the logs of who's logging in and logging out, the consumers are not really using it as a resource. I believe the highest month usage was 100, and it has tailed off since then. So that is the information that Mr. Smith analyzed when he, first of all, set forth the arguments, set forth the options, and then sided with the further refinement of the bill to direct customers to the web page that would allow them to understand precisely how the bill was being calculated. And all that information is available. So the issue, policy issue for the commission is whether that is sufficient to address the concerns that you've heard previously this afternoon, or whether you believe that from a policy perspective that the information should be on the bill, notwithstanding the various additional true-ups that need to be made after the fact. And it's a very simple issue. I don't think it's a political issue as much as the commission trying to determine whether this is in the customer's interest to have this on a bill versus having it on the internet. The customers have, the majority of customers have access to the information should they choose to investigate it. But the question is, what format does the commission believe is appropriate given the concerns that have been discussed here and the analysis that Mr. Smith made in his memo? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Mr. Goodman?
Thank you, Chair. If I may, I want to apologize for the quality of the exhibit store comments. The color didn't come out, and it's important. So if I may just hand you these. And you don't have to look at it on the computer anyway. These are the exact same exhibits, Exhibit A and B, that were in our written comments. Sorry for the delay. Thanks for letting me hand that out to you, Chair and Commissioners. I wanted to provide you with the copies of these two exhibits. First, as I said, I'm dissatisfied with the color, and the color kind of necessary for you to see what would be new on the bill and what would be new on the website. And second, I believe that it's going to help the new commissioners completely understand what changes have already been made in this docket, because two of you weren't here for round one. And I think Commissioner Gray, I think oh wow, it's been that long. Okay, three of you weren't here for what happened. So I thought maybe it'd be helpful. So if you look real quickly at what I handed up to you, Exhibit A, this is a model bill. It is an actual bill where we've blocked out the information, and I used the same one that was used during the workshops, so everyone here who participated wouldn't have to look at something new. That's why it's an older, back from April. Thought that would be fair to everyone here to do it that way. If you look on page 2, what I did is I highlighted 3 line items. When Representative Kowalko, Senator Lawson, and a group of other legislators asked to open this docket, we didn't have those 3 items broken out on our bill. And so through workshops in what we call phase 1 or round 1 of this docket, everyone came together and agreed that these were 3 issues that would be helpful to customers, wouldn't complicate the bill too much, and we came to you together and said this is what we would like to do at this stage. And you'll see that we have the low income charge was taken out of the distribution rate and separately line items. The Green Energy Fund, same thing. And number 3, which is the one that we're sort of dealing with here today, is the renewable compliance charge. What the renewable compliance charge is it includes the cost that Delmarva Power incurs in complying with the Renewable Energy Portfolio Standards Act. Kind of a long name. Some people call it REPSA or RPS. And what that act does is it mandates that by the year 2025, Delmarva has sufficient renewable energy credits to represent 25% of its customer load. So by 2025, for every 4 megawatts of energy that our customers consume, we have to have 1 REC. Some of them have to be SRECs, but I just call, for purposes of this, it's just renewable credits. And currently, it's 13%. This compliance year, we have to have 13% of our load that our customers consume. We have to have representative credits in that amount. And what is in that renewable compliance charge is the cost of what are 7 commission-approved projects that we use to comply with REPSA. One of which is the qualified fuel cell project. It is a very large part of that. It is, and I'm going to give rough numbers now, okay? Roughly half of our compliance comes from that. And then Commissioner Winslow will remember 3 wind farms, 2 in Pennsylvania, 1 in Western Maryland. Commissioner Winslow will recall that we also purchased 75% of the SRECs from the Dover solar project. And Commissioner Winslow and Commissioner Gray, Chair Winslow and Commissioner Gray will recall that we also have a solar project or a program that is done through the Solar Task Force every year, and that's another large source of our SRECs. So those are the main projects. Delmarva, I guess I should first say what a good job, now I'm going to sound old, this young man, Jason Smith, did in running these things. He is really a great asset, and he did a very nice job, and I thought that he did, a very nice job writing up, explaining what happened and what the recommendations are of the staff. And Delmarva agrees that it would not be in the best interest of customers to single out just one of 7 projects. We believe it would make Delmarva's bills more complicated, and we agree that with staff that there would be a risk of misinforming customers by focusing on just one of 7 project costs. And Delmarva agrees that through the changes that we will make to our website, the customers who want to know exactly what they're paying each month will be able to do so easily. And I wanted to comment as well that we're also going to make that information available. You call our call center, and we'll tell you what your monthly charge is as well, because as Mr. Geddes pointed out, not everyone has internet access. I think everyone has access to a phone at some point. So we're going to make it as easy as possible. For those who do want to know exactly what they're paying each and every month, we'll tell them when they call. And Exhibit B, and this is the one where the color didn't come out too well on what we submitted. This is the changes that will be on our website. The chart you see there that's mostly is in black. That's already there. So we tell you now currently, and this is updated monthly, and we give 3 months of information so you can go back and look at prior months, exactly what the per kilowatt hour charge is. So your bill says you use this many kilowatt hours, and all you do is multiply it, and you got your exact charge that you paid for the fuel cells. So we try to make it even easier here. In the red text, we explain how to do it and give a sample. And this will be updated every single month to the current numbers, so customers who want to do it can get on there and do it. If you see on page 2 of the bill, there's red text there. That's the explanation we want to add that says, for information on the different components of your renewable compliance charge, go to this exact page. That's where it takes you. Again, if Commissioner Correa, you call and say, hey, I'd like to know, I don't want to do it on my computer, we look up your account and say, okay, you use this many kilowatt hours, this is your exact charge for the qualified fuel cell program for this month. So our reasoning is described at length in our written comments, and what we look forward to is a commission decision today so we can hopefully put this behind us and move forward. But I want to again thank staff for the incredibly good work it's done, and also we obviously are supporting DENREC's position too, but we are going to do whatever the commission directs us to do today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goodman. Ms. Iori?
Thank you, Chair Winslow, Commissioners. Public Advocate participated in all of the workshops that have been conducted in this docket. The Public Advocate did not file any written comments either prior to Mr. Smith issuing his recommended decision or any comments after that decision was issued.
Mr. Noyes?
Thank you, Chair Winslow. DENREC did submit a letter, 2 pages. I'm not going to go through every detail of the letter, but would just take a moment to summarize how we got to where we are today. As a couple of other parties have described, there was a phase 1 of this docket, and phase 1 ended up with a consensus brought to the commission, which the commission approved. I will admit that DENREC was relatively late to joining that consensus, but we did. And I think we have been comfortable with where we ended up from there. Stepping back a moment, there is no statutory requirement here to do anything of what we're describing. The closest thing to a standard in this docket would be in the petition filed by Senator Lawson and Representative Kawako, which referenced the appropriate level of detail contained in Delmarva's monthly billing statements. We came to a consensus as to what that meant in phase 1. There is no consensus before you today. As Mr. Geddes described it, as a policy issue, and sometimes on policy issues we disagree. That's where we are today. And so we've been through a lot of discussion. It's very respectful. I would join in commending Mr. Smith for the job he did in managing this docket. We think we did a good job in his memo of describing where we are and offering alternatives to the commission. We agree with just about everything he said in that. We think we've arrived at a good place. The information provided on Delmarva's website now and as described in this attachment is accurate and we think clear. We think it fairly and accurately reflects the overall cost of Bloom as compared to the other renewable resources or the renewable resources in the renewable compliance charge. We think we've arrived at a good place with Delmarva's proposal and we support that proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Noyes. Mr. Geddes, under the, Mr. Stevenson, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was an intervener in this for Cesar Rodney
I
Institute.
apologize, I didn't mean to go to rebuttal already, but go ahead, Mr. Stevenson.
Okay, thank you.
very much.
First of all, I'd like to pay 3 compliments. I agree with Senator Lawson that hiring Heather Contant was an excellent choice. She'll be a great addition to the commission. I'd also like to concur that Mr. Smith did a fabulous job on this, handling this docket. I appreciated everything you did. He was very respectful of everybody and did a good job summarizing. And finally, I just want to compliment the commission in general. The results we've already had are just miles beyond where we were when we started. Having those 3 items on the bill, it was really good. I appreciate that. As far as the fuel cell separation, my initial reaction was it should be separated. I have changed my position, and it is because of, really I'm just being selfish. I am looking forward. The 2014-15 compliance year, the total cost of compliance was $60 million. $36 million of that was from the fuel cell project. 60% was from the fuel cell project. And I am looking forward to getting a big bag of popcorn and watching the Division of Energy and Climate explain why that $36 million is on the electric bills and has disappeared from the cost cap calculation. So I would like to keep it in all lumped together for that reason. And that ends my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Representative Kowalko.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. First, let me preface anything I'm about to say by walking back the political aspect of it. This is not politics. When I refer to, and Mr. Noyes is absolutely right, there's no legislative authority, other than me, there can't be, to put this as, I explained that already, about the imposition of, I think, if it took us 2 years to write a bill and get it passed, it would not ever pass. So we had 2 years, we had to stock it. But I do want to take exception to the reference by Delmarva and by Mr. Noyes about the Phase 1. When we initiated this position, when I initiated this petition with Senator Lawson, Delmarva said that they were upgrading their system of billing and that they were going to be putting some new things in there, and will we patiently wait for that before we address the specificity of our asking in the petition. I agree to that. Phase 1 was never a part of this petition, and the success of Phase 1 is wonderful and commendable, but it was an asking of Delmarva to provoke a more adequate likelihood that we would not be disrupting a billing system in place this day that changes this day, and our petition, if it's resolved, would have interfered with that kind of type of thing. So let me explain that. It's very important that the Commission knows that, because you weren't here for that decision. Phase 1, wonderful thing happened. Phase 1 has nothing to do with the initial petition request. And if you look at the handout from Delmarva, and so blithely put that you can just go in there and, let me see here, multiply the number of kilowatt hours consumed per month by the qualified fuel subsidy for the rate for the same month. It's set forth in the table below. Calculate. They can do that. Put it on the bill. And if it's going to be a reduction in the amount they put on the bill for the rest of the renewable energy credit, which we could have that debate all day whether it's appropriate that it ever should have been in that, but it is, so that is what it is. They reduce that number by the amount they're putting in here. I'm not asking them to go out and calculate everybody's bill every month, except it's a stroke of the computer that does that for them, and they can put it on the bill. And the public has a right to know what they're paying for in a bill as explicitly as we can put it. And it's not a political statement. It's not a question of renewable energy credits and the references to portfolios that we are exceeding our rights to burden citizens with this. It's a matter of the bill. It's not a complicated morass of things we're asking for. It's available on the website. Why isn't it available on the bill? The New Jersey bill that they gave me from Delmarva gave me, it listed another half a dozen things on there. I mean, I'm not asking for this kind of a distribution of things. I'm asking for one simple reality. The number calculated so they don't have to go onto the website. Put it on the bill. The people deserve that. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Walker. Senator Lawson.
Thank you, sir. I remember that meeting quite well, and DP&L's argument was simply, look, let's not interrupt the current billing process, that we're going to a new billing process, and we would like to hold off till we can do that, and then indicated there would be a likelihood of inclusion there. That was the argument then. DP&L and DENREC agreed then. We go on, moving on, and DP&L and DENREC, the state, agree then. Well, if you want to talk about politics, wow. They represent the governor's office, who was instrumental in getting Bloom Energy in bed with DP&L. That's an issue. So they already started out on the same side. It hasn't changed. I didn't vote for this matchup between Bloom and DP&L. I didn't buy it. I still don't today. And I think it's only fair that the people know what they're paying for. What started out as somewhere between 70 cents to $1.25 is now by this bill in May at $3.24, something to that effect. Wow. That's really climbing quickly. Where's it going to go in the next 18 years or whatever is left on the contract? Without any oversight, without people even knowing about it. That's not fair. It's not right. It's not transparency, and that term is overused today. But Delaware was recently scored on its ability to be transparent. It failed miserably. And it continues to fail when we act like this. I would appreciate your consideration at all ends for putting this on the bill. It's only right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Nichols.
Thank you for recognizing me, Chairman Winslow. I too want to compliment Mr. Smith for his work as the presiding officer. A politician once described members of the House dealing with them as herding cats, and I think he did an admirable job herding cats.
only have one cat.
That being said, I disagree with his recommendation, and I'll note the items that he listed in his report. One is the tariff cost for the fuel cell, the fuel cost, PJM energy and revenue dollars that are received, avoided costs that are not reflected in the monthly billing, and a true-up that would reflect actual true costs as they occur. That's true. That's how the tariff operates. Each month, Delmarva submits what I call a bill to the commissioners, which you approve, to pay approximately $3 million a month on average to Bloom Energy, totaling $35 million a year. Never, and the true-up occurs, but that doesn't deter Delmarva from making the collection as approved by the commissioner each month. So these components of arriving at the bottom line number, which allows Delmarva to submit a bill to the commission each month, are irrelevant. The fact that they exist is just a normal operation of the tariff. It's not a reason to exclude from the ratepayer's bill a separate line item for the costs that they bear. They average themselves out over time. So I dismiss his arguments. I think that they're wrong and they're irrelevant in terms of providing a reason for excluding cost. As to DENREC's position, it is true that Regulation 102, which I believe the Commission is aware of, which DENREC has submitted for public comment, does exclude the Bloom cost, and calculating whether or not the 3% cost cap, as may be applied under REPSA, is attained. So that's interesting. Why is it interesting? It's interesting because in that instance, they exclude Bloom in its entirety, and as Mr. Stevenson has pointed out, but in this instance, they want to have it include under REPSA. That's a hypocritical position, with all due respect. You can't have it both ways. Either it's included as 3% of the cost cap in its entirety, or you exclude it. So I would ask DENREC, which position are they going to take? And that really is going to be difficult. Of course, it should be included. It should be included. But again, they're arguing today that it needs to be excluded. And there isn't any difference between that cost and all the other REPSA charges. But of course, there is a difference. And as has been explained, 50% of what is currently paid each month in REPSA compliance goes to one company. Bloom is a special interest. It's a privately held company. The Commission and the legislature and the administration decided to make venture capitalists out of Delmarva Power's ratepayers. Now, I spent 30 years in the financial services industry discounting future value into present value. I know a little bit about numbers, and I know that averages are the most deceptive numbers in the world. The reality is we can talk about the average cost spread out among the ratepayers, but what we need to do, and as the Commission is aware, one company in Delaware to subsidizes Bloom Energy to the total of $1 million a year. One company. I've also been advised that other companies have complained to the PSC about how much they're paying for Bloom Energy. So while when you spread the cost out over the large rate base that Delmarva Power has done, of course the numbers are small. But even those numbers don't reflect reality, because built into those numbers, when the cost is indicated to be in line with what was projected, is the discounted values. They're discounting the values of all the costs paid over time to today's dollars, and then they're further reducing that by not having to pay REPSA, not having to buy REPS under REPSA, no REX, no SREX, and then reducing that cost even further. Well, that's all fine and well, and that is in fact how it works. But the reality is people still have to pay it out of their pocket. The fact that the money that otherwise went to wind or solar is now 50% of it's going to Bloom, they don't care. They don't care. It's still real dollars. And that's why the paper continues to report the actual cost on the average basis as it applies to all ratepayers. They're not going through all these machinations to come up with these numbers. And I've been told by representatives of the legislature that they were never told what I've just described, that it was just going to be $1 more to the ratepayers, when of course that's not true. What it was more money, but not as much, because we're going to carve out some of the dollars that otherwise would have went to wind and solar, which is why the solar industry purveyors have approached me saying, good job, fight for us. They want their money. And lastly, I disagree with Mr. Geddes, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and this is just an opinion, that this isn't political. This is 100% political. If it wasn't political, we wouldn't have spent 2 years getting to the point where we are today. The administration and other individuals do not want people to see how much the real cost is for Bloom Energy. Certainly those large commercial companies who may not already know how much they're paying for Bloom Energy, because it's a lot more than $1. In one instance, it's $1 million per year to subsidize one company which has failed miserably with respect to their performance goals, which has not gone public, which is raising the cost of new deployments, which survives only on the basis of subsidies, whether they're in Delaware, California, New Jersey, or Connecticut. This charge has to go on the bill. And if it doesn't, I'm hopeful that Senator Lawson and Representative Kowalka will do everything in their power to make certain that this right is correct, this wrong is corrected, that people know. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Representative Walker.
Just very quickly, I don't want to dispute the fact it is political, the objections to putting this on the bill. I did not bring this petition for political purposes. That's what I want you to clarify, I want the commission to understand. It has deteriorated into no responsible or rational dialogue objecting to it. Therefore, it can be assumed that it belongs in a political marketplace of irrational and time-consuming, certainly, foisting of non-reality things, threats, what it can do, what it's going to do, it's going to overturn the world. We've seen that none of this will happen. We've seen, and I hope the commission sees that this is not a major asking. It's doable. It's not a burden on Delmarva. It's certainly not a burden on Denrec. It's not a burden on, it is a burden on the customer who should be aware of what that burden is. Thank you.
Representative Senator Lawson, any more comments?
No, thank you, sir. Appreciate the recognition.
The renewable compliance charge that's presently on the bill, that's representative of all the 7 different categories, correct? And I think that Mr. Nichols indicated that Bloom was 50% of that. I heard somebody else say 60%, or 60%. 60%. So there's, seems like to me there's a pretty substantial number with respect to the other renewable programs too, correct?
Are you saying the fuel cell carve out is a well, by comparison, 60%, it's more than half of that.
Right, but the 40% figure is pretty good too, isn't it?
That is, but that is so wide ranging in what it affects, and you don't want to get into the, well, you might want to, but if you want to start doing analysis of what is renewable, what is not, I mean, I was just in Iowa where they claim they're being tortured for being the most renewable state in the country when they burn grass and they think it's renewable.
Just follow the statute, representative, with respect to what's renewable, regardless of whether we believe that or not. We follow the statutory.
Oh, you did. The commission followed it. Our edict as lawmakers, yes.
And I think that your comments about having an honest and something that's informative to the customers is certainly what we want too. But we don't want something, we support Delaware with respect to their newsletters, their website, their communications with the public, because we are concerned about communications, and we are concerned that the public, in fact, understand that their bill and know what's on their bill. And believe me, I don't think that as far as the commission is concerned, that there's any politics involved. I mean, the legislature passed a bill fairly not unanimously, but very, very one-sided vote. And now we have Bloom, and our job is to see that through, pursuant to legislative initiative. And I invite you to make whatever legislative changes that you think are appropriate in the best interest of your constituents in the future. But we don't get into the political aspect of it. I would just remind you that as far as a petition says, it talks in the background about certain fees, renewable fees that be charged to Delaware customers. It talks about the various things, and it says that the customers do not know how much of this monthly bill is dedicated to these various initiatives. Well, I understand that in June that this commission got the petition. I also know that in January, 6 months later, Delaware is going to institute a multi-million-dollar new accounting system. I thought it made eminently good sense to do what you all did, which was more efficient and more productive. And I disagree with you, Representative Kowalko. I do think that those 3 additional lines are consistent exactly with the petition that you filed, based upon the language in the background of the petition that you filed. And the real issue, as far as I'm concerned, is, if we put the Bloom charge by itself in the way that you all want it on the bill, is that really being totally honest and giving the customer the whole picture? And it really, does the whole picture have to be just confined to the bill? I think that we, generally speaking, we look to Delmarva and we ask them to put things on their website, to communicate on a monthly basis with their customers, and to put certain things on their bill. I don't know. I agree with the concepts you're saying, but with respect to just taking Bloom with one of 7 items and emphasizing that for some reason, and not taking care of all 7 of them, Mr. Nichols addressed that. Why would we do one charge and not the rest?
That's a great question.
Doesn't this charge show all of them? You have a little asterisk here. 60% of this figure is Bloom.
It's an excellent question. The difference between Bloom and the other charges is that Bloom is unique. Bloom is a feed-in tariff. The other charges are not. That is unique in and of itself. It's a European-style feed-in tariff, number 1. Number 2, Bloom was promoted as a jobs-creating measure. In other words, the legislature decided that if Bloom was adopted, jobs would be forthcoming. This was during the midst of the Great Recession. And the reason the support was almost unanimous is because nobody wanted to vote against anything that was a jobs bill. They didn't want to take, and it was introduced at the end of the legislative session. And nobody had the time to study the issues associated with the Bloom project. And nobody wanted to be labeled as anti-jobs. So only 3 of our representatives voted against it. My congratulations to Senator Lawson, Senator Bonini, and Representative Peterman. 3. 3 had the courage to stand up and say, no, I'm not going to do this. So the fact that it received unanimous approval, given the way in which the bill was presented and when it was presented, shouldn't bear on the decision-making. But let me go beyond that. Let me go to the staff's own report. And I have all this for records if you want to review it. I provided it if you want to look at it. But let me just tell you. In the staff's report, they say, three consultants hired said, do not adopt this. This costs too much. The levelized cost, the average, was about $215. Levelized cost, for those who don't know, is the sum total of all the costs of putting a project in place, discounting those costs to present-day dollars, fuel, financing, operational expenses, everything. $215 was what Bloom was projected to be. At the same time, a combined cycle plant, per the EIA, could could have been built in Delaware for $65 against $215. All right? These are the real numbers. But the consultant said the economic benefits are such that we really, if you do it and the jobs present themselves, but here are all the risks, and the risks are presenting themselves now. If you choose to adopt it and the economic benefits develop, maybe it was a good idea. But that was that was not a big endorsement of the project. Far from it. For the same amount of money, Chairman, Delmarva Power ratepayers, instead of getting the paltry 30 megawatts of generation that Bloom currently provides, they could have acquired 400 megawatts of generation. You want to talk about a cost?
That's not the issue here today, Mr. Nichols.
No, these are addressing your questions. You said what's different. This is different.
You told me it's a unique feed-in tariff.
Well, it's beyond that.
Well,
No, it was sold as an economic benefit project.
You're arguing the viability of the idea, not really the bill. And
It's unique.
fairness to the customers as seen through the eyes of the bill and the website and various communications of the.
Well, the issue is, but as I understood it, sir, please correct me if I misunderstand you. You're saying that the 60% and the 40% are big numbers, and we've already got it included as one big number, so why do we have to break out the 60%? Why don't we just keep it as it's one number? And then you asked me, what's different about Bloom? And I'm telling you.
You told me, but then you went into all the arguments against Bloom.
Well, that is what's different.
I don't see them
But the adoption of the tariff was based upon the economic benefits. The other programs didn't have those factors associated with their adoption. Only Bloom. This is why it needs to be broken out. People need to know what they're paying.
I don't want to get into an argument about all those other programs, but I would be willing to bet you if we went over each one of them, that they were in fact vetted by this commission in a great number of ways before they were made part of this bill.
But they weren't contingent upon job creation in Delaware. Bloom was.
That's correct, but there's no language in any statute I'm aware of that says that we make that unique determination based upon the job creation, the deal that the governor made with whoever he made it with. We're not part of the political thing. We're here to make sure that the bill is fair, the customers can find the information that they want to find, and that information is accurate. And on top of it all, it does not seem that there's a big hue and cry with respect to the present bill, according to what I understand from the reading I made. And I don't think this thing is going to die. Whatever decision we make today, I know the parties here are going to continue this issue, and it's going to be a political issue beyond the scope of our commission. And whatever happens, happens, but we need to just basically focus on what's best for the consumers, and Delmarva is part of that. Representative Kowalko.
Yes, I just want to answer some of your queries, and it has nothing to do with the efficacy of that bill or Bloom or the project itself. 60% of the number, then why don't we have that isolated on the bill? Very easy task. And then on the website, Delmarva can construct its calculation factor so that you can identify the other 6 items that are included in that.
What do you think, Mr. Getty?
It's certainly a possibility. I guess the only issue you have to ask Delmarva is the cost of something like that. But the technology is not the issue. It is the question of where this information should be and how should it be presented in a way that's fair and doesn't confuse ratepayers. And that is how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. I mean, it depends on your point of view as to whether you think putting this in a place that is not on the bill, not right in front of the customer, and you have to make assumptions that the customers actually read their bills and look at these line items. I would imagine there are probably quite a few that don't. But in fairness, this is a large 272 under this category. It is a number, and it accumulates over time. So the question is, are the arguments better in favor of the ratepayer doing the best for the ratepayer to carve this out and then carve the other 6 projects out as well? So you have 7 subsets or 8 subsets. It's 6 plus 1 or 7 plus 1. I'm looking at this bill. 6 plus 1. You can have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever. That's a billing. Obviously, there are costs associated with that. and that's, I guess, the best clarity. But now your bill, look at the bill now. And, some of us have been around a long time, and we have bar charts. We have, it's sort of like legal services. In the old days, for services rendered, and there was a number. Or if you did corporate work, you asked the client to put the number in. But in the old days, the bills were one page. And now you can see how they're expanding. And we're trying to provide relevant information. But people will disagree on how much is too much and whether it's confusing. And I just don't think there's a clear answer to that question, and people disagree as to whether it should be in or not. And obviously, some people disagree passionately.
Mr. Chairman, I have to interject here. Mr. Geddes' recollection, and you weren't present at the last workshop. The encouragement I received from Mr. Geddes as far as the staff recommending supporting this was based on a very point that you made. Am I satisfied with what we have in this bill going forward after the first phase one? And I was not, because I wanted other things. But he said to me, Mr. Geddes, you said to me, then am I to understand that you will be satisfied with just the Bloom thing put in there? And that's not disregarding the fact that they can put the rest of those on a website for people to calculate their own way. They could, and they still could put the Bloom price on the bill. I was of the impression that lowering my sites from the complexity that it in reality might have presented to Delmarva to put a bunch of different items on there would be relieved by the simple gesture of the Bloom number being put on the bill. Not on a website, not through a calculation. It seems now that the recommendations are somehow contradicting what I thought was a very responsible compromise on my part. So I don't want you to think that this is what I asked for in here, and a lot of it is satisfied with phase one, because what I asked for in here and what came out at the workshops was certainly much more complex, would have made a much larger bill. And listening to the prospects and the challenges of having an enormous bill certainly caused my enthusiasm to recede a little bit from where it would be. But it did not cause my enthusiasm to recede from the Bloom thing. And it's not to justify my actions. I'm the guy whose district did 900 jobs were supposed to appear in. I'm the guy who managed a bill on the floor, knowing about it the day before I managed it on the floor. I regret that. That's political. That's not the part of this commission. But I think that what I'm asking for, what Senator Lawson is asking for, to carve out this part of the bill and put it on the monthly bill, and then do any other dialogue you want into this wonderfully simple calculatory method that they have on a website, can be done, and assure the public of what they are. I'm not asking tomorrow to put on that bill, this is a Bloom charge, and this is Mr. Nichols' accurate description of it, and this is why. All I want is that number on there. And I think that the public's entitled to it, and I don't see any harm to the public to have it on there. And every time there's a reference, and I hear these references, well, there's only been 100 hits on the website asking for it. I don't care whether there's been one hit. Number one, it's a constituent. Number two, I've had hundreds of phone calls about why isn't this, why don't I know what I'm paying for this? So I don't want to hear about a hit or 100 hits. That means nobody's interested. I'll give you 300,000 people. You call them all, ask them if they're interested. And the businesses that are paying millions of dollars, ask them if they're interested in what we've done here.
Point of clarification.
Yes, sir, Mr.
The representative is correct. I was trying to drive a compromise, and I was trying to understand what the ultimate position of the petitioner would be and whether we could limit it to a single issue rather than bringing many issues to you. And yes, we have limited it to one issue, but staff was only attempting to accommodate some resolution, and it came down to this particular issue from all the issues that were discussed during the 3 workshops. So We presented you a clear choice. Either it's on the bill or not on the bill. Your comments have also suggested, some other possibilities. But my attempt was to bring one clean issue to you that you could consider. And that's what I tried to do.
And of course, the commissioners are all aware that settlement discussions take place, and we don't get involved in that, nor do we consider settlement negotiations with respect to in our decisions. So technically speaking, a lot of this has been really not relevant to our discussion. But Commissioner Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess not being here when this first came up, I'm amazed it's taken 2.5 years to decide whether or not a line item or two goes onto a bill. I'll start there. Okay.
Medicare now.
What I'd like to do is drive down a more practical as opposed to a political lane and not get involved in the politics and what the motive and the drivers are and Dito's responsibility in this commission. But if I drive down a practical lane, I'm led to believe or conclude that Delmarva is willing for the customer to understand what the Bloom charge is, because in this Exhibit B, it's presented for me in a table. And in that table, on the first line, if you get to this chart, I'm seeing residential and then April billing. And I see two columns. One is Bloom and one is the rest. So it tells me from a former IT perspective that I can lift those numbers and put each of those as a separate line item on the bill, and the customer can see what we're all having this conversation about, practically speaking. And so this information is presented for the customer to see by logging on to the Internet. The Internet is simply one of many channels through which to communicate with the customer, as is the bill. What's the issue with lifting and posting this to the bill? I don't care who answers it.
My issue is that the fact is that this Bloom has become such an exceedingly high charge to the individual customers that they should be allowed to see the individuality of that item, which is 60%.
Mr. Representative, I understand that, and the point I'm making to you is that on Exhibit B, if I were to open up the Internet, I see it. And so these numbers for April, the first two columns in residential are exactly the numbers that are combined together on the April bill, the exhibit number A. So I'm asking Delmarva, what is the issue with lifting those two numbers from that column and posting two line items on a bill if the customer can see it from the Internet anyway? And one comment. I went to the Internet to log in so that I could check mine last night. And unfortunately, as an IT person, there were at least 6 configuration steps I needed to take. And I failed at the first one because I couldn't find the bill I last paid because I threw it away. So that's a wall and an obstacle in my mind to gathering and getting to the information, which may keep the number of persons on the website low statistically. So I'm asking still the same question. If it's presented for the customer to see through the channel of the Internet, what's the issue with presenting it as two line items for the customer on the bill?
Would you like them already answer that? Yeah. Commissioner Gray, as you said, from an IT perspective, physically it can be done. And what Delmarva has said, and this is not something we've come up with for purposes of oral argument here, and that's why in our comments we quoted the response to the request that staff asked on what can you do, what do you think we should do back in, I forget when. But by the way, Mr. Geddes, as he explained, trying to narrow the issues, that was part of what he did in this, and he did a fantastic job narrowing it down to the real issue. So I think he's very correct in what he just said. But we can physically do that. We could make a bill that is very long and complicated. It's possible, no doubt about it, Your Honor. Our concern, as we've said from the beginning, is why would you pick one of 7 projects and just put that one on the bill and mash the others together? So as a customer, well, okay, so I see the renewable compliance charge, but what's this one? Well, that's also renewable compliance. That's one that just people wanted singled out. Well, so what we believe is that the vast majority of our customers want a reasonably simple bill. Those who want to know more, we're going to make it readily available to them. You go onto the website, and this isn't something you have to put in your own account number for or anything. This is just on our website. So you go on the website, you go to this page on the website, and here's the updated chart every month. And if you have your bill there, it says the exact kilowatts you use, you multiply it, done. And if you don't want to go through all that, you call our 800 number, you hit 0, and you say, I'm Harold Gray, it's 123 Blackbird Lane. Can you tell me what my fuel cell charge is this month? Sure, sir, it's this. So we're trying to make it easy for those who want to dig down. Our concern is that when you pull just one of 7 out, and Mr. Smith put it very well, it starts to get, why are you picking out this one? How is it different? It becomes confusing to us.
Understood. But to answer one question that you raised, why would one do that on the bill? I guess if I'm looking at the ratio of the Bloom charge out of the total, which is hovering 50 to 56%, I would say that's relatively material.
Sure.
And if I'm looking at requests from 22 legislators who represent the public interest, I would say if it's feasible and practical to do it, why not?
It is feasible, it's practical. I think the 22 legislators were signing on to analyzing what we should put on the bill. I don't think we have 22 legislators saying put the fuel cell charge separately on the bill. I don't know what the answer is to that, Your Honor.
But the letter did specifically that was sent. I mean, you're making an assumption there that's not accurate.
Mr. Falconer, please wait till Mr. Goodman finishes his comments.
My apologies.
If you got comments, we'll be glad to hear from you.
I think I said I don't know if those 22 legislators want that. I think that's exactly what I said. But in any event, we could put it on there, Your Honor. There's no doubt. We could put everything on there. It comes down to what's best for customers, and that's our concern. And that answer is up to you. So you four.
One last question, Mr. Chair. So as an outcome, I see perhaps one of two lanes. We assert that this posting, since it's already available to the customer on the internet, goes on to the bill, or this issue gets forced in the legislature in such a way that it gets the time, attention, and resources of the legislature to make a practical posting. Which is the better outcome?
I have to go with what the chair said. I think that I think he answered that, and I agree with him that you are following the existing legislation out there. You're, as an administrative agency, you're trying to do what you believe is best, and it is your decision. And that if the legislature doesn't agree with that, and certain members of the legislature want to try and force something different through legislation, and that's their job. And if they do that, we will follow that, just as we'll follow whatever your decision is here today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Nichols?
I just want to address the question that Commissioner Gray raised. Why should it appear on the bill? Well, the reason it should appear on the bill is I've been told multiple times, nobody has the attention to detail that I have, and they don't care about it the same way you do. And that's supposed to be a reason why we don't do it. That's just an excuse. That's not a reason. If people aren't aware of it and they don't know about it, it's because Delmarva has not done a good enough job communicating to people what they're paying for so that they can make a decision. And I assure you, if this is included as the charge as it appears today, very few people will take the necessary time and effort that's required to go to the website and calculate what their fuel cell charge is. How would they even know it exists, for that matter, to even go there? If there's a charge in there, go to the website. Does that say on it on the bill?
It's going to stay right on the bill.
It's going to, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we don't need to do that. We can put it on the bill as a separate line item, although it's not legislatively mandated. There's nothing that precludes the commission from making the determination that it's in the best interest of the ratepayers to educate them as much as possible. That's the answer to the question.
I think we probably have had really adequate input with respect to these issues. I would like to read the petition, some of the language of the petition. Does none of these, this is in the A, none of these legislative initiatives specifically outline how these fees would be reflected on consumer bills. But I believe there certainly was an expectation that the fees would be clearly shown, and I would respectfully submit that the petition is referring to 7 fees and not just to one fee, but all 7 fees. And, if I were convinced that an individual customer could not obtain the information that would be able to tell him or her what his bloom charge was, then I would probably agree with Mr. Nichols. But I respectfully submit that there's only so much expense we should go to, and there's only so much we can do. I mean, there's been a great improvement made in the bill, and the party should be happy about that because the bloom charge is in fact now on the bill. 60% of that figure. As Mr. Goodman says, if you're a customer, if you want to find out exactly what you're paying for bloom, you can do that. So I guess people understand where I'm coming from. Any other, Commissioner Correa?
Yeah, I have a couple of items. I have a radio report which is excellent, step by step, lot of good quotations and references, and very convincing report as such technically. The electric bill for a customer, which every one of us pays, hopefully, knock on wood, that's technical part, the bill, the calculations, and what have you. But beyond the calculations, and I have prepared the electric bills from 0 to 100. So many of them for the city of Dover, where we own the power plant, we own the distribution system, and I was in charge of the electric billing creation, collecting the money, cutting off the electricity, and the whole 9 yards. And I even don't pay the football. Still, I use the word 9 yards. So my thinking is a little bit old-fashioned in the sense that a monopoly given to the utility, it can be water, electric, has to be like a government, like we were doing it. We were overextending our information to the customer. Say, here it is, take it. In fact, the citizens and the ratepayers had a right to come to City Hall, look at the tax bills and look at the tax records and electric charges and sometimes my worksheets. Unless they were privileged or confidential, they would come and I will open up the file and say, look it up, no problem at all. And there were times when we raised the electric rates because of the oil embargo. People walked in and said, why are you charging me this month? So I had to show them that, hey, look at this fuel adjustment. It was $12 a barrel, and then now it's $29 in those days in '74. But that was government, and I agree that Delmarva is not a government. But still, Delmarva or United Water or Artesian Water, they are sort of a public monopolies given by the state and the governments and cities and counties and what have you. So accepting the technical report and what have you, if I was the chairman of Delmarva, I would say print it. Because it's like a conscious, when you go to sleep, you want to sleep better because you want to go back home and feel that you have done your job and then some. Then some is not applicable to a office supply store like Staple because there are 20 office supply stores in Dover and maybe 30 in Wilmington. But having done a good job for a monopoly or a government is doing the job technical and 2 steps beyond that. And that's where my thinking is, that if you had agreed before because the system was being upgraded and you would have done it in the past, and I don't know about the history and what have you. So if you had thought about it and if you can do it, 2 more lines on the bill, not is Bloom or is Mike Caria industry or Chairman Winslow's industry, the names are not important. But it is the outreach, the word is outreach. You outreach the customer, even though they can go to website. But how many of us go to Verizon website, our wireless, and we just pay, or any other, AT&T or what have you, or our electric bills? I go to the website every month. I pay the electric bill on website, close my eyes and say, oh my God, this is my bill. I just paid. I don't go to the next line. So I remember God once a month. Then I pay the bill. So, oh my God, such a bill? But I have to pay it because of city of Dover and what have you. So my thinking is little old-fashioned, that the world is outreach, the world is beyond technical and 2 steps more because we are a monopoly, because we are a government. And there are 300,000 people, so $202.72 multiplied by 300,000 customers, multiplied by 12 months. And if you keep adding all those things, today's value for the today's money, when I pay my bill, it is today's bill, not discounted. Sorry for that. But when I pay $130, it's today's money. I earn today, I pay today. So it is, if I was the chairman of Delaware, I would say do it.
You want a job?
We're talking about, I'm not sure what, do what?
To show it on the bill.
Okay, show what? The Bloom Energy charge.
I would say that show the whole energy charge, but make a one-line note underneath here that this includes Bloom energy charge of this much.
It would say that it includes what the commission has called it, the qualified fuel cell.
Right. Or you can, if you don't want to show it, then another option may be that here you have so many notes here. Put a note there that this $2, this amount includes this amount for this and this and this. Not all the 7 projects, but maybe 60% one and then other.
Okay, are there any more questions from any of the other commissioners with respect to this issue? If not, if someone has an idea they'd like to put on the table, I'd be happy to discuss it. Mr. Over, next motion. We finished discussing. Mr. Nichols, we've been here. Everyone's had.
Not for me. I was going to ask if members of the public would be allowed, who might want to address the commission, if they would be allowed to do so.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
They're not parties, and they're not permitted to speak under the rules
Thank you.
on this issue.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion.
Yes, sir.
I move that the Delmarva bill be revised in such a way as to carry 2 line items. One is the QFCP, and the other is the RPS. Inasmuch as I'll stop with my motion there.
We have a second to the motion to put 2 additional, well, I should say put 2 additional lines, but include the Bloom Energy charge and then a separate RPS charge for the other 6 items on the customer's bills.
I would second it with an amendment.
Please.
Proposed amendment that either you can put it on the bill or you can show as a note underneath, which would be one line more descriptive, and most people will be able to understand that by reading the words rather than figures only. Whatever is more convenient and less expensive and less complex.
Commissioner Gray, is that an acceptable amendment to your motion or not?
That's an acceptable, friendly amendment. Yes.
I second.
Okay. Is there any discussion concerning the motion to make those 2 changes to the Delmarva bill? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? I'm opposed, and we have 1 member missing, so we have 3-1. The motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate all your input.
Would it be appropriate to ask for a clarification on timing and what you would like us to come forward with? Because we need to let you know when we think we can do it, things like that. Would you like us to address that next meeting, or just some guidance would be helpful?
Well, I think that you all should, first of all, the order is not going to be ready for us today. So I assume we're going to have that order for our consideration at the next meeting, at which point in time you can, I guess the parties can incorporate what you want in that order that would facilitate and take into consideration all the logistical problems, et cetera, and the timing, and then we'll address that at our next meeting before Christmas.
We're going to leave it to Mr. Smith.
Teleconference.
Thank you for your time. I know this was a long.
Thank you all very much, Representative Kowalka. Thank you, Senator Morrison. Thank you. was, we have number 3 now, in the matter of the petition of the Division of the Public Advocate to request the Public Service Commission, et cetera. It was proposed order number 8807. I hope that was, I think it was drawn up a lot by Ms. Iori, but Ms. Mayrack, I believe you were going to have you present the order, and Ms. Iori can comment as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In docket number 15-1462, the commission has before it order number 8807. This order simply memorializes the commission's decision from the prior meeting, which was on November 3rd, in which the commission denied the petition of the Division of the Public Advocate and the Cesar Rodney Institute to review regulations concerning Section 354I and J regarding the cost cap provisions. The commission did not adopt either of the proposed orders at that meeting, but instead directed the parties to draft a motion that captured some of the discussion that occurred at that meeting, particularly involving the lack of clarity in the governing statute. Want to recognize and thank Ms. Iori for taking the laboring oar in drafting this order, which I believe captures the argument put forth by the DPA and by Cesar Rodney Institute, that also captures the discussion that was had at the commission meeting, and then memorializes the decision of the commission to deny the petition and close the docket.
Thank you, Ms. Mayrack. Ms. Iori?
Thank you, Chair Winslow, Commissioners. I would hope that the proposed form of order also adequately captured staff's and the DENREC's objection to the motion, because I didn't hear you say anything about that. That having been said, I believe that the form of order was reviewed by and approved by the parties to the docket, and therefore we would ask that it be approved.
Thank you, Ms. Iori. Mr. Stevenson?
Yes, I also reviewed the order. I agree with it. I would say one request that you actually voiced, Mr. Chairman, was that a note be put in there that the legislature take a look at this for clarifying language, and I can report to you that there is legislation drafted to do exactly that.
Okay, well, I think that's I appreciate that suggestion, but I think that what we ordinarily do is we don't make them part of our orders. We do that on a separate basis after consultation with staff, and the executive director has some input, obviously. So we will. My position would be that we accept the order as it is. Obviously, I've already articulated what I think that we should do, which is to seek some more guidance from the legislature with respect to these issues. Anyone wants to capture Representative Kowalko, maybe he'd help co-sponsor it.
I believe, isn't that comment in the draft?
I think that the order provides that the commission wished that the statute was clearer, but not that they're instructing the legislature to do something about it.
Yeah,
It simply says, we urge the General Assembly to clarify those responsibilities going forward.
I'm
Between the two.
just pointing out, yes, I support that language, and just reporting that indeed legislation has been drafted.
well, that's
Whether it
good.
will pass or not is another issue.
That's good.
And, Mr. Chairman, I would just add, it went without saying that it captured staff's and if I can speak for my colleague at DENREC, our position. Thank you.
Any commissioners have any questions of the parties?
Point of order question here. I abstained on this vote last time, and we established the same posture. Mr. Drexler was not present.
Right, so
So-
I would abstain as well.
We need to determine, do we have a quorum technically?
We do not.
No, we obviously do not. I can't remember, what was the basis?
We have a quorum at the to clarify, we have a quorum at the meeting, but if we have 2 abstentions, we would not have enough votes to pass because we need 3 votes.
Well, it was one abstention, but one commissioner was not present.
I think there's, I'm sorry for jumping in, but I think there's a difference here. You're not actually voting now on the merits of the discussion. What you're only voting on now is whether that order adequately reflects what took place at the meeting. And I
Understood.
think you
Okay.
can vote on that.
All right, very good.
Commissioner Drexler, I don't think can because she was not present at the meeting. But you, I think, can vote on that, and so there is a quorum.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, we have quorum. It's just
Okay.
that if we need 3 votes to pass the motion, so
Understood.
depending. Okay.
I understand.
And it does, I mean, the order does note
Yes,
the
that's why I
absence
asked.
of Commissioner Drexler as well as your abstention. We were careful to clarify that.
I move that the order be approved as submitted.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No. Abstention, 1.
Abstain.
Passes 3-0 to 1. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Okay, so we're on number 4 now, right? In the matter of the provision of standard offer supply to retail consumers in the service territory of Delmarva Power and Light. This is going to be Ms. Knotts and her friend, Mr. Led Zettler. Welcome, sir. And please tell us about our auction.
Yes, as you'll recall, this past Monday, Delmarva held their first tranche for their standard offer supply for contracts beginning June 1st of 2016. And Mr. Ledzeller here is from Liberty Consulting. He is our technical monitoring consultant, and he wants to present the results from this tranche. He'll present the general information during the public session, and then if the commission so chooses, he can discuss the confidential information in an executive session.
Mr. Bernard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Point of order. Since you may go into executive session to discuss this bidding, may I recommend that you get Comcast out of the way before we make them wait any longer for this afternoon? Yours is relatively brief.
That's a good suggestion. Ms. Knotts, do you have any objection to that?
I have no objection.
No objection.
I'm not sure how far you have to travel to get home tonight. That's rather.
Quite a ways, but it's okay.
Okay. So we'll accept Mr. Bernard's very good suggestion, which is to get rid of Comcast. In nice fashion. And Comcast.
Mr. Chairman, I would just point out that staff's counsel has just stepped out, and she is handling the Comcast. Ms. Donahue. I'm sure she's coming right back.
Or somebody else.
I'll go look for her.
I think we got someone. We got 4 people volunteering, so they all can leave.
As long as none of the commissioners leave.
Exactly.
I think Comcast needed to grab some of their witnesses.
Oh, okay. Okay, we have number 1 on the hearing schedule, which is the application of Comcast of Delmarva, EST cable television rates, etc. And we have the proposed order number 8823 under consideration, and we have Ms. Culver from Comcast. Welcome, and please give us your case.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Winslow, members of the commission, Mr. Bona. We appreciate your fine suggestion that we take the agenda out of order and appreciate the consideration of the commission. For the record, my name is Donna Culver. I'm with Morris Nichols Arston Tunnel in Wilmington, Delaware, and I'm here on behalf of the Comcast entities with respect to the next 4 items on the agenda. I think the first item is PSC docket 15-1455, which is in the matter of the application of Comcast of Delmarva Inc. for a change to its basic service tier, cable television rates, and necessary equipment installation charges in unincorporated areas of Kent County. Comcast electronically filed its 1240 and 1205 application with the Commission on October 1st, 2015. As directed by the Commission staff, on November 6, 2015, Comcast published notices of the application in the News Journal and the Delaware State News as required by state law. The affidavit of publication attesting to the publication of notice was electronically filed on the docket on November 18th, 2015. This time we would request that the application and affidavit of publication be placed into the record for docket 15-1455.
So could we have we're moving the documents that you've already been given into the record at this time.
So amended.
In support of the application, Comcast calls Mr. Chris Comer to testify. We have the witness stand.
Sir, please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Spell and your last name.
Stewart, M-E-R.
Mr. Comer, by whom are you employed?
Comcast Cable, which includes Comcast at Delmarva.
And what's your position and area of responsibility with Comcast at Delmarva?
So I'm the Director of Government and Regulatory Affairs and oversee government affairs in Kent and Sussex counties, working with local franchise authorities, franchise renewals, and regulatory matters.
Could you speak up, sir? Could you speak up?
Let me show you, Mr. Comer, a copy of the application and the affidavit of publication that was just entered into the record in this matter. Do you recognize those?
Yes, I do.
What are they?
Those are 1205 and 1240 forms that were filed by Comcast at Delmarva for certain areas in Kent County served within Community Identifier Unit number 0062.
Okay, and that's docket 15-1455, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. When were they filed with the Commission?
October 1st, 2015.
And to the best of your knowledge, were the forms filed in accordance with FCC regulations?
Yes, that's correct.
In these forms, Comcast has calculated new maximum permitted rates and new operator-selected rates to take effect on or after January 1st, 2016, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and can you explain for the Commission how the maximum permitted rates were calculated?
The maximum permitted rates for regular rates and fees are created by an FCC formula, and Comcast inserts the required variables and then calculates the maximum rates.
And the proposed operator-selected monthly rate reflected in the application, how was that calculated?
It's based on the maximum permitted rate, but those aren't necessarily the rates that are going to be implemented.
Okay, so the operator-selected rate that's requested is consistent with and equal to the maximum permitted rate under the FCC regs?
That's correct.
Okay, but you said that those are not necessarily the rates that Comcast intends to put into effect, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and is it Comcast's intention to implement the maximum selected rate on or after January 1st, 2016?
No, our intention is to increase the basic service tier rate by $1.70, so it will go from $23.08 to $24.78.
And that is less than the maximum permitted rate calculated under the FCC regs, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, how about the installation and equipment fees reflected in the filing? How were they set?
Similar to the maximum permitted rate following FCC rules and formula, and they're set at a maximum permitted rate.
Okay. And do you intend to implement the maximum allowed rate for those services on or after January 1st, 2016?
No, many of the rates will stay the same. Some will decrease and a few will increase. The video equipment rates 7 of those fees will stay the same. 0 will increase and 2 will actually decrease. The installation fees, 2 of those will stay the same. 8 of those fees will increase and 6 of those fees will decrease.
And overall, in terms of current rates versus proposed rates, is there an overall net increase or decrease?
For the equipment and installation rates, it's actually a net decrease.
Of how much, do you know?
I don't. The overall increase was around $6.50, and the overall decrease was $8.15. So around. I'll let you do that.
I won't test your math if you don't test mine. Has Comcast provided notice to the commission and subscribers in this service area of the rate increases you've just testified about?
Yes. The notices, we're providing 30-day notice to customers and to the commission. Beginning November 21st, notices were sent out.
Do you have anything further testimony?
No.
Comcast has no further witnesses, and that concludes our presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Colbert. Ms. Donahue, Ms. Marshall?
We have no cross-examination of this witness, so if we could have Ms. Marshall sworn in, staff would present testimony also.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Ms. Marshall, could you state your full name and spell it for the record?
My full name is Shawna Marshall. That's SHONA-MARSHALL.
And just for the record, could you give us your business address?
861 Silver Lake Boulevard, Suite 100, Dover, Delaware, 19904.
And by whom are you employed, Ms. Marshall?
The Public Service Commission.
And what is your title?
Public Utility Analyst.
Were you assigned as the case manager for this docket?
Yes.
And as part of your duties and responsibilities, what did you do as case manager for this docket?
I reviewed the application as well as forms, FCC forms 1205 and 1240 for calculation accuracy and FCC compliance.
And I believe that Mr. Comer did describe what each of the forms does, but just as a quick recap, what does Form 1205 relate to?
Form 1205 calculates the maximum permitted rates for installation and equipment rental fees.
And what does Form 1240 relate to?
That's the maximum permitted rate for the basic service tier.
And did you review the information in each of these forms?
Yes.
Could you describe what kind of review you did for the information in these forms?
I reviewed the application, make sure it was correct and consistent. I also reviewed the calculations in forms, the FCC forms 1205 and 1240 for the calculations and to make sure it was compliant with FCC rules and regulations.
And did you have any conclusions after you did this review?
Yes, both the forms as well as the application were consistent and correct with FCC rules and regulations.
Did you get any public comments relating to this docket?
No.
And did the public notices that were published, did they solicit written comments from the public?
No, we received none.
But did they solicit or ask for any
Oh,
comments
yes,
on that?
they did, I'm sorry. Yes.
And you didn't get any, correct?
No.
Okay. You heard Mr., am I saying it right, Comer?
Yes, ma'am.
Comer testify about the maximum permitted rates and what the operator was going to select. In proposed order number 8823, I believe the testimony was that the selected rate was going to be for Kent County $24.78. Is that what you heard also?
Yes.
And is it your understanding that the company can later increase this selected rate if they give notice to the commission?
Yes.
Do you have any recommendations on this particular application for the commission?
I recommend approval of the application as well as the FCC form.
And I just note for the record that Ms. Mayrack pointed out there was a typo in this order, and I apologize for that. After looking at it many times in different forms, I think we missed this. But in paragraph number 2 on the first page, it should read, whereas Comcast of Delmarva, Inc. And that is in the first line in paragraph 2. So, Ms. Marshall, you are recommending the commission approve this application?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So staff would urge the commission to adopt order number 8823.
Ms. Iworty?
No questions.
The commissioners have any questions of Ms. Culver, Mr. Comer?
Mr. Comer, I have a question. I understand that your 2016 operator selected rate is going to be $24.78, but I'm confused by the fourth column on page 3 that says proposed operator selected monthly rate. How is that different from your proposed operator selected monthly rate?
Yes, ma'am. The proposed operator selected rate would be the maximum
Right.
that we would charge, but at this time, we intend to charge less than that.
It's kind of confusing because it makes you think that's going to be your proposed rate.
I agree.
Of comment.
Is that, sorry.
Go ahead.
So is the 3539, that is not a charge rate that you will use?
No.
Is that the same as the 2478, or do you have a figure that would go in the column with
No,
3539?
I'm assuming the proposed operator selected rate would just reserve our right at a later date to come back at some point during the year if we wanted to increase the rate. But at this time, that's not our intention.
That would be subject to making the required notices to subscribers and to the commission.
Thank you.
Thanks.
May we have a motion with respect to proposed order 8823?
Motion to approve order number 8823 with
I'll
the
second.
change on paragraph 2.
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion on the motion to approve proposed order 8823? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And we have one absent member. Okay, number 2, Ms. Colvin.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is in the matter of the application of Comcast to Eastern Shore LLC for a change to its basic service tier, cable television rates, and necessary equipment and installation charges in the unincorporated areas of Sussex County, CUID DE0023. Again, this application was filed electronically with the Commission on October 1st, 2015. A notice of the application was published as required on November 6, 2015 in the News Journal and the Delaware State News. An affidavit of publication attesting to the publication of the notice was filed on the docket in this matter on November 18th, 2015. We would request that both the application and the affidavit of publication for docket 15-1456 be entered into the record at this time.
Admitted without objection.
In support of this application, Comcast again calls Mr. Chris Comer to testify.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Mr. Comer, you're employed with Comcast of Eastern Shore, Inc.?
Or LLC.
Okay, LLC. And what's your position and area of responsibility with that company?
I'm the Director of Government and Regulatory Affairs for Kent and Sussex County.
Let me show you a copy of the application and the affidavit of publication that was just entered into the record for this docket. Are you familiar with those documents?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and what are they?
Those are Form 1205 and 1240 that were filed by Comcast of the Eastern Shore for certain areas in Sussex County served with the community identifier unit numbers 0023.
Okay, when were those filed?
October 1st, 2015.
And to the best of your knowledge, were those documents filed or those forms filed in accordance with FCC form regulations?
Yes, they were.
Okay. In these forms, Comcast has calculated new maximum permitted rates and new operator selected rates to take effect on or after January 1st, 2016, correct?
That's correct.
All right, and how were the maximum selected rates or maximum permitted rates calculated?
The maximum permitted rates for regulated rates and fees were created using an FCC formula where Comcast inserts the required variables into the formula and then calculates the maximum permitted rate.
Okay, and how about the proposed operator selected monthly rate reflected in those forms?
Similarly follows an FCC formula, but those rates reflect the maximum permitted rate, but are not necessarily the rates that will be implemented.
Okay, and can you explain to the commission what rates Comcast intends to implement on or after January 1st, 2016?
Yes, our intention is to increase the basic service tier rate by $1 from $22.78 to $23.78.
Okay, and that's less than the maximum permitted rate calculated in accordance with the FCC regulation?
Yes, that's correct.
How about the equipment and installation fees reflected in this filing? Can you explain how they were set?
Similarly, they follow an FCC formula and are set at a maximum permitted rate following FCC rules.
And is it Comcast's intention to implement the maximum permitted rate with respect to installation and service charges after January 1st, 2016?
No, actually, for our video equipment rental rates, 7 of those fees will stay the same. 0 will increase and 2 will actually decrease. For the installation fees, 2 fees will stay the same. 8 will increase, and 6 fees will decrease.
Okay. And have you calculated the overall net effect on over or under current rates?
The total amount of the increase in the equipment and rental rates is $6.50, and the total amount of decreases is $8.15.
And that's spread across a number of categories of services, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Has Comcast provided notice to the Commission and to the subscribers in this service area of the rate increases you've just testified about?
Yes, we're providing 30-day notice to customers and to the Commission, and the notices began going out on November 21st.
I have nothing further.
Thank you, Ms. Colbert. Ms. Donahue.
I have no cause. We have a witness for staff. Guess who? You're still sworn in, right? Or does she need to? She needs to be sworn in again.
Re-sworn
For this, yeah. Sorry.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Could you state your name for the record?
Shauna Marshall?
Do you work for the commission?
Yes.
And what is your title?
Public Utilities Analyst?
Were you designated as a case manager for this docket?
Yes.
And did you review the forms that are included in the application in this docket?
Yes.
And what kind of information did you look at?
I looked at the application as well as the FCC forms 1240 and 1205 for the calculations and to make sure they're consistent with FCC rules and regulations.
Did you have any conclusions about the review that you conducted for this docket?
Yes, that they were actually in compliance with FCC rules and regulations.
And you heard the testimony about the affidavits of publication being in the record and that public comments were solicited for this docket, correct?
Yes.
Did you receive any public comments for this docket?
No.
You also heard testimony, I believe, from Mr. Comer about the proposed operator-selected rate. Did you hear what that number was?
Yes.
Could you repeat it for the record?
Yes. The number is $23.78.
And would Comcast be permitted to increase up to the maximum permitted rate as long as it gives notices to the customers?
Yes.
So they could later increase up to the maximum permitted rate?
Yes, with the appropriate notice.
Do you have any recommendations for the commission on this particular application?
Yes, I recommend approval of the maximum permitted rates for the installation and equipment charges and the basic service tier.
You have before you, Commissioners, order number 8824, which staff is recommending that you approve.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Alori?
No questions.
Any commissioners have any questions of the parties with respect to this part of Sussex County?
Chair, I move that the Commission adopt order number 8824 as submitted.
May we have a second,
I
please?
second.
Is there any discussion on the motion to approve proposed order number 8824? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed, and we have one absent member. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Now we'll do number 3.
Make a quick witness swap here,
Okay.
as will I.
Kevin Broadhurst.
Can you spell it?
Broadhurst. First name is Kevin. Broadhurst. First name is Kevin. Kevin.
You ready?
Please proceed.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is in the matter of the application of Comcast Cable Communications LLC for a change to its basic service tier, cable television rates, and necessary equipment and installation charges in the unincorporated areas of Newcastle County, CUID number DE0011. Again, Comcast electronically filed its 1240 and 1205 application with the Commission on October 1st, 2015. On November 6, 2015, Comcast published notices of the application in the News Journal and the Delaware State News to provide at least 20 days' notice of the hearing as required by state law. An affidavit of publication attesting to the publication of the notice was electronically filed on the docket on November 18th, 2015. And at this time, we'd request that the application and affidavit of publication for this docket be placed into the record.
Admitted without objection.
Comcast calls Mr. Kevin Broadhurst to testify.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Mr. Broadhurst, by whom are you employed?
Comcast Cable Communications LLC.
Okay. And what's your position and area of responsibility with that company?
I am the Senior Director of Government Affairs for Newcastle County.
And let me show you a copy of the application and affidavit of publication that was just entered onto the record for this matter. Are you familiar with those documents?
Yes, I am.
Okay. What are they?
It's Form 1240 and 1205, filed by Comcast Cable Communications LLC for the areas in Newcastle County served by the head-end system within Community Identifier Unit number 0011.
Okay. When were those forms filed?
October 1st, 2015.
Okay. And to the best of your knowledge, were those forms filed in accordance with FCC form regulations?
Yes.
And in these forms, Comcast has calculated a new maximum permitted rate, a new operator selected rate for various categories of service to take effect on or after January 1st, 2016, correct?
Yes.
Can you explain how the maximum permitted rates were calculated?
The maximum permitted rate for regulated rates and fees is created by an FCC formula. Comcast inserts the required variable.
Slow down, sir.
Okay, sorry. Comcast inserts the required variables into the formulas and then calculates the maximum rate.
Okay, and how about the proposed operator selected monthly rate? How was that calculated?
Those rates reflect the maximum permitted rate, but are not necessarily the rates we'll be implementing.
Okay, and with respect to the service area covered by this docket, what are the actual rates that Comcast intends to implement on January 1st, 2016?
Sure. The intention is to increase the basic rate by $2.80 from $16.23 to $19.03.
Okay, and that is less than the maximum permitted rate calculated in accordance with FCC regulations?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. How about with respect to the equipment and installation fees that are reflected in the filing? Can you explain how they were set?
Similar to the basic rate, they're set at a maximum rate permitted by FCC rules.
And does Comcast intend to implement the maximum rate with respect to service and installation charges in this service area?
No, we will not.
Can you briefly comment on how the actual rates that you intend to implement as of January 1st, 2016 compare to current existing rates?
Sure. I'll start with the equipment fees. The equipment fees, for 8 of the fees, they will stay the same. 2 of them are going down by a total of 50 cents. For the installation fees, 3 of them are staying the same. 4 are going down by $1.40 total, and fiber going up by $2.60 total.
And do you know if that's a net increase or decrease over current rates spread across the various categories?
I think it's a net increase for the installation fees by $1.20.
Okay.
And then a net decrease for the equipment fees by 50 cents.
And has Comcast provided notice to the commission and subscribers in the service territory of its intention to implement the rates you've just testified about?
Yes, notice was mailed to the commission and to our subscribers within this area on November 10th, 2015.
Do you have any further testimony?
No.
Attend to the witness.
Thank you, Ms. Colbert. Ms. Donahue?
Staff has no questions for Mr. Broadhurst. We have a witness that we'd like to tender, though.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Mr. DeLosa, could you say your name for the record and also spell it?
Sure, Joe, J-O-E, DeLosa, D-E-L-O-S-A.
And what's your business address?
It's 861 Silver Lake Boulevard, Suite 100, Dover, Delaware, 19904.
And who's your employer?
The Delaware Public Service Commission.
Were you designated as the case manager for this docket?
Yes.
And what do your duties include when you're designated as a case manager for a Comcast matter such as this?
I was assigned to review FCC Forms 1205 and 1240. In this particular docket, that Comcast Cable Communications LLC, located within Newcastle County, as the gentleman said, with in area with service number 0011. These documents were filed with the Commission on October 1, 2015.
And is this area for the unincorporated portions of Newcastle County?
Yes.
Did you review the information in the forms that were part of the application?
Yes.
And could you tell me what kind of review you did of the information?
Yes. I reviewed the application filed for compliance and accuracy with FCC regulations.
And you heard the testimony about how there was public notice given about this particular docket in the application, correct?
Yes.
Did you receive any public comments in response to the newspaper notices?
No, I did not.
You heard testimony about the operator selected rate. Could you also state what you believe was the testimony regarding the amount of this operator selected rate for the unincorporated areas of Newcastle County on a monthly basis, just for that, for the BST? Sorry, I said that fast.
Yes. The proposed maximum monthly permitted rate is $19.28, and the testimony that I heard, the operator selected rate was $19.03.
And is it your understanding that the company can increase this as long as they give notice to the commission and also to the customers?
Up to the maximum monthly permitted rate, yes.
Do you have a recommendation for the commission on this particular application?
Yes.
Sorry. What is your recommendation?
I recommend that the commission approve this basic service tier cable and equipment and installation charges effective January 1st, 2016.
On and after?
On and after January 1st, 2016.
Commissioners, you have before you a proposed order number 8822. Staff supports this, the commission adopting this particular order for this docket.
Any commissioners have any questions of Ms. Donahue, Mr. DeLosa?
Chair, I may have a question. But Kevin, how are you?
Good.
Mr. Broadhurst. First, full disclosure, I'm a Comcast customer.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
I note in your public notice for the News Journal that you would raise your rate to $19.28, and I heard your testimony at $19.03.
That's right.
So, which is the right number?
So the 1928 is the maximum permitted rate that we select at the time that this filing is due. That gives our operations the flexibility to take that if they needed to.
Yeah.
But we're choosing to select the 1903 rate, which is obviously lower than 19.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for the clarification.
Are you satisfied enough with that explanation? You
Yes,
make a
sure.
motion? You make a motion?
Sure. Yes, Mr. Chair. I move that the commission adopt order number 8822 as submitted.
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion on the motion to approve proposed order number 8822? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One absent person, and it's 1-0. Thank you all very much. We have one more. Mr. Comer's coming back. Ms. Culver, please proceed.
Okay, last Comcast docket is 15-1457, which is in the matter of the application of Comcast Delmarva, Inc. for a change to its basic service tier cable television rates and necessary equipment and installation charges in the unincorporated areas of Sussex County, CUID number DE0079. I was actually informed after Ms. Donahue pointed out that there was a typo in the last order related to Comcast of Delmarva, Inc., that the actual name of the company is Comcast of Delmarva, LLC. So it turns out that which she thought was a typo is actually the correct name of the company. I don't know whether we need to submit a revised order with the corrected company name or not, but it would also impact this docket, which is also an application by Comcast of Delmarva, LLC, and not Comcast of Delmarva, Inc.
Why don't we finish up this matter, and then we'll vote correctly on this and have the correct name, and then we can go back and amend the previous order by making the name accurate.
Thank you. The application for this docket was filed electronically with the Commission on October 1st, 2015, in accordance with state law. The application was published in the News Journal and the Delaware State News on November 6th of 2015, as directed by the Commission staff. An affidavit of publication attesting to the publication of the notice was thereafter filed on the docket on November 18th, 2015. We would request that the application and the affidavit of publication for this docket be placed into the record.
Admitted without objection?
That's correct, Your Honor.
In support of this application, Comcast calls Mr. Chris Comer to testify.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Mr. Comer, you're employed by Comcast of Delmarva, LLC, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, what's your position and area of responsibility with that company?
I'm the Director of Government and Regulatory Affairs for Kent and Sussex counties.
Okay, let me show you a copy of the application that was just entered into the record in this matter. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
Those are Form 1240 and 1205 that were filed by Comcast of Delmarva, Inc. for certain areas in Sussex County, served with the Community Identifier Unit number 0079.
And you're familiar with those filings?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, when were they filed with the Commission?
October 1st, 2015.
Okay, to the best of your knowledge, were those forms filed in accordance with FCC regulations?
Yes, they were.
Okay. Yeah, in these forms, Comcast has calculated new maximum permitted rates and new operator selected rates to take effect on or after January 1st, 2016, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and can you explain how the maximum permitted rates were calculated?
They're calculated using a FCC formula where Comcast inputs the certain variables that are required, and then the formula calculates the maximum permitted rate.
Okay, and how about the proposed operator selected rate as reflected in the filing?
Similarly, they follow an FCC formula, and those rates, the operator selected rates, reflect the maximum permitted rate, but are not necessarily the rates that we plan to implement.
Okay, and with respect to this particular service territory, can you explain how rates, both for basic tier service and with respect to installation and service charges, will increase over the rates currently in existence?
Yes, for our basic service tier rate, that will increase by $1 from $18.78 to $19.78, and that's less than the maximum permitted rate. The basic for equipment and installation fees, the video equipment fees will 7 of those fees will stay the same. 0 will increase, and 2 will actually decrease for a total of 50 cents. For the installation fees, 2 of those fees will stay the same. 8 of the fees will increase, and 6 of the fees will decrease
for a total of a net decrease of $1.65.
And that's across all of the installation and service charges, that net decrease you just
Yes,
testified
yes.
about? Okay. Has Comcast provided notice to the commission and to subscribers in this territory of its intention to change rates in accordance with what you just testified?
Yes, we are providing 30-day notice to the commission and customers with notices starting to go out November 21st.
Do you have any further testimony?
No, ma'am.
I tender the witness.
Ms. Donahue?
Yes. I don't have any cross. I was just thinking of something, but no, I don't have any cross. But I do have a witness that I'd like to tender for staff.
We would like to hear from him.
Could I have Mr. DeLosa sworn in?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah,
Could you please state your name for the record?
sure. Joe DeLosa?
And do you work for the Public Service Commission?
Yes.
What is your job title?
Public utility analyst?
And were you assigned as the case manager for this particular docket?
Yes.
And as the case manager, did you review the application and the two forms that were included in it?
Yes.
And the information that you reviewed, what kind of particular review did you do regarding this information?
I reviewed the FCC Form 1205 and 1240 to ensure that they were in compliance with FCC regulations and the calculations were accurate.
So your conclusion is that the numbers listed in the applications complied with FCC rules and regulations?
Yes.
Did you hear the testimony about the public notice given regarding this application?
Yes.
And did you receive any public comments in response to the published notices?
No.
Did you also hear the testimony today about the operator selected rates?
Yes.
What is your understanding of the operator selected rate that will be noticed, I assume, on November 21st? For BST rates?
Yes, my understanding is that it is in compliance with FCC regulation and less than the FCC. It's in compliance with FCC regulation. It is $49.58.
Was the selected rate going from $18.78 to $19.78?
Yes.
So, and the maximum is set forth in the order 8825?
Yes, that is
And
correct.
so the maximum was the $49.58, yes?
That is correct. I heard testimony from Comcast that their rate would increase $1 from $18.78 to $19.78.
And if Comcast gives notices to both the commission and to the customers, could it increase that operator selected rate later on in this year?
Yes, up to the $49.58 as listed in the order.
Do you have a recommendation for the commissioners regarding this application?
Yes, I recommend that the commission approve Comcast's filing in this docket.
So staff is supporting proposed order number 8825, Your Honors.
Thank you very much, Ms. Donahue. Anybody have any questions concerning the proposed order?
Is the current rate 1878 or 1879? Because we keep saying $1, but it's 99 cents. Just to clarify, is it 1879? In the order, it's 1879.
You're correct, ma'am.
That's a 99 cents. Okay, good, good.
Thank you.
Motion to approve order number 8825.
I second it.
Is there any discussion on the motion?
Yes.
Yes, there is.
Chair, there is a modest revision, I believe, in the description of the company in this order.
Yes, sir.
And it should be stated in which way?
If I could clarify that. In the caption, we should have in the second line, Comcast of Delmarva LLC. Is there a comma?
Is there a comma before?
Delmarva and LLC?
There'd be a comma before that.
Yes, I believe so.
And so then in the second paragraph, it would read, whereas Comcast of Delmarva, comma, LLC.
So that's as
Motion to approve order number 8825 as revised.
second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? An absent member. We have, thank you all very much. We have one matter though. We have Ms. Donahue.
Yeah, just to clarify, in PSC docket number 15-1455, the caption should also read in the second line, Comcast of Delmarva, comma, LLC. And the order should read, and this is for order number 8823, whereas Comcast of Delmarva, comma, LLC.
That is correct. Thank you.
I move that we approve that change.
Second?
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. It approves. It's approved. Okay, that leaves us. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
You. Permission to be
Thank you, Mr.
excused.
Chairman,
Absolutely.
Commissioners.
Thank you. So we'll go back to the one, the Delmarva action and the auction.
Okay, Chairman and Commissioners, without any further ado, we will resume what we were talking about. Mr. Ledzeller will be able to present general information in the public session, and then if you wish to discuss any of the confidential information, you can go into executive session.
Good afternoon, Mr. Letzel.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman.
Please proceed.
As soon as the presentation goes online, I will be glad to, but I can tell you without any slides that the results were very favorable, so we'll start with that. So this presentation is about Tranche 1. This is our fourth year monitoring your auctions. So in summary, we completed our role, and the bottom line is the results and the auctions were consistent with the RFP. They resulted in prices that were very favorable. In fact, record prices, record lows. And overall, it was a function of market conditions and a high level of competition. Our role, for those of you not familiar, we've been with many commissioners before, but is to review the materials that the company uses to communicate with the market, including the bidder website, review bidder eligibility, confirm Enernox fees. Enernox is the company that used to be known as World Energy that provides the auction platform. They merged with, or they were bought out by Enernox last year. And then develop a power market assessment to come up with opening prices and expected prices, and be present to actually monitor the auction. Okay. There were 3 blocks of risky as usual, 2 of MGS and 1 each of LGS and GSP. Interestingly, next tranche there will only be 2 of risky. They're going to be a little bit larger than last year, but there's a little bit less load overall. That happened, I think, last time in 2012. So that'll just be a little bit different next time, but there was no difference for this tranche 1 auction. Overall, participation has improved over last year. We had 8 eligible bidders versus 6 last year, and 8 actually did end up bidding, which compares to just 5 last year. And bid activity itself was much higher. In the risky blocks, for example, we had 7 bidders and up to 27 bids for the most active block. That compares to last year's Tranche 1, where there were only 2 bidders for risky. So this is much favorable, much more favorable in terms of the level of competition. We looked at the market, obviously, before approving going ahead with the auction, and the long story short is everything was a green light. There were no conditions that would have warranted us postponing Tranche 1, so we moved forward. And a look at the energy market. The red line represents the PJM Western Hub forwards, round-the-clock prices. The dashed line is the forwards for the delivery period that were shown in the Tranche 2 of last year, and the black solid line was Tranche 1 a year ago this time. As you can see, energy prices, the forwards for energy prices have come down substantially for all periods, especially in the winter months. Also, interestingly, it's important to note that 2 years ago at this time, prices peaked in the summer, but due to the polar vortex 2 years ago, the prices actually ended up peaking in the winter. That's still the case, but not as drastically as it used to be. This whole power market outlook is driven by gas price projections being very low. This is pretty drastic when you look at the 3 last tranches, the red line being the most recent. Gas prices are just historically low, and there's no sign that that's going to change much going forward with all the advances in drilling and fracking technology in the Marcellus and Utica shale areas. So the outlook is very good for gas prices to remain low in the foreseeable future. Of course, we also look at coal and oil forwards, and prices for both commodities there have also come down since the last tranches as well. So as you may recall, last year at this time we had low participation and not a lot of competition, and we had some very high bid prices that won. A lot of that was due to the uncertainty and risk associated with the PJM's capacity performance proposal, a lot of uncertainty. So in addition to the fact that the energy market has come down, that uncertainty has been all cleared up, and what we saw was that we had a high level of competition. So there are really no major issues anymore, and we have a very robust market. So we included that we should proceed and that the auctions were well run. They were highly competitive, and they resulted in winning bids that were much lower than those in recent years. And as I mentioned, in fact, they are record lows. So with that, I will open for any questions you may have. And, of course, we do have the confidential presentation as well.
Any questions, Commissioners? It looks like your presentation was so thorough that we have nothing to ask of you. So I would move at this point in time that we do go into executive session for the reasons set forth on the agenda. And hopefully we'll have a second to that motion. Is there any discussion regarding the motion to go into executive session? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.